Greetings and welcome to Zord Scientific Space Program Episode 6. We pick up right where we left off last time, that is with our crew, Bill, Bob and someone else, being done with the scientific expedition to Duna. And being done, they are returning to orbit and the fuel tanker left there. Now we're transferring the fuel from the boosters, the external boosters, into the main ship, because after this point we do not need those extra engines for anything else. They are just dead weight, and we don't need the fuel tanks either, so we're just gonna leave them here. In fact, bringing them would put us at a disadvantage. Now we're going to try to rendezvous with our fuel tank that's in orbit, because we left some fuel in it and we may need that to get all the way back home. As you see, we are running quite low on fuel actually, and we are going to have to take the ship interplanetary in its current configuration. So we rendezvous with well, it's a tank really, just a fuel tank floating around with a docking port on it. So we rendezvous with this, and this ship is not maybe super well constructed for docking maneuvers, but it can manage it. I believe I said earlier that this was kind of an Apollo style mission, and this is what I meant. It's kind of Apollo style, that you leave something in orbit and then you go back and land, you go down on land and you go back up into orbit and redock. Just that in this case it's the ship, the entire ship, that goes to land, and you just leave extra fuel in orbit. So this thing is now completely empty and useless, so we're just gonna mark it off as debris, and with the fuel we currently have, we should have no problem whatsoever going back to Kerbin. So when are we gonna go back? It's gonna be a while. In meantime, we can make something useful of the Journeyman probe that got here. We had already done the science at Duna, so we're gonna go to Ike. And yeah, as you see, we are on an elliptic orbit, and we want to take advantage of that by doing our burn at periapse. This means that we need to wait for Ike to be in the right position in its orbit. So I just waited a very long time with the time warp being all low, so I'll cut that for you. So yeah, we are going to Ike, doing the burn, still using the cruise stage or transfer stage or what you want to call it. This thing is remarkably fuel efficient. So we are going out to Ike, taking some high over Duna readings, the last we are gonna get from this probe, and we are in Ike's sphere of influence. Now we want to get captured, get it on orbit, and of course we want to do science all the time while we're doing anything and everything, because we want the science spam. We are getting rather close to completing the tech tree, but these last technologies are super expensive. So we're coming up on the circularization, or the capture burn, which we're also going to use to circularize. And actually, let's bring the periapse down and circularize again, because we want to get the readings from low Ike orbit while we're here. There's no reason not to. So we swing around, and on the dark side we're gonna do the burn, and we get scientific readings that we're gonna keep and transmit while we have sunlight, so we cannot run out of power for once. That would be nice. Yeah, like so. We transfer the science and get even more science while we are in the sunlight, because this uses a lot of power. I can transmit everything once with the batteries I have, but this thing runs on electricity, so it would be a shame to take a chance unnecessarily. Now, I bet I could land this thing. It's not at all even considered to be able to land, but Ike has rather low gravity, and this thing has still got the transfer stage attached, so it's very rich in fuel and delta V. And yeah, I'm just gonna try landing it on Ike. We can get surface readings. So that's the stage. Now we're just on the internal fuel, which is remarkably much, considering it using the smallest fuel tank of this size. Well, it doesn't contain a lot of other things. It's just science, a fuel tank, and a very, very tiny engine. So yeah, the challenge here is going to be landing it properly and not falling over, because it doesn't have any landing legs like you surely noticed. So we're coming down, and I was using the orbit information for quite too long and getting down very close to the surface here. Can I just push it down very gently? And yes, it can even stay upright using the reaction wheels that it has built into the probe core, I suppose. So yeah, we're just gonna stand here and do some science, because I don't know what will happen when this falls over. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. So we just science spam away as much as we care to, and let's put this down, because we're gonna have to switch away from it eventually. Oh, don't break. Ooh, yeah, that's good enough. So yeah, science. We got a lot of science. Let's unlock stuff. I want what do I want? I want the mainsail and the orange fuel tanks. I've been missing those. And yeah, there's a lot of things we should get. The question is what we're going to get. Yeah, materials. Let's see what we can build with the new stuff. This is what we can build with the new stuff. This is a ship that's going to Eve, and for something that I built, this looks unorthodox, let's say. But it works, and I would like to draw your attention to the 2 fuel tanks that are now being emptied. They are going to detach, and that looks so cartoony, because they are attached above a larger fuel tank. We're gonna have to push them away with Cybertrons, and yeah, it looks hilarious, in my opinion. So this is the ship. We are just finishing the orbit. There we go. And in my mind, this ship looks very good, with the solar panels to each side and a large antennae and lots of stuff just in general. Yeah, so as I said, we're going to Eve, and we're gonna have to wait just a few hours to get a good window, which we now have, and we're gonna have to do a rather large burn. If you look carefully, you can recognize that the stage that I'm using is very similar to the one used for the Moho lander. That's because it's a straight up copy. And yeah, I like reusing things that work. And yeah, hang on. Did we use... Yeah, we used almost exactly the amount of fuel that was in those external tanks, barring like 4 units of fuel. So yeah, that bug. That's a nice bug where the radial decouplers lose all their ejection force if the objects that are radially attached are also connected with struts, or in this case fuel lines. Yeah, but we have 1 RCS tank, so we can just nudge us away from this very carefully, and taking scientific readings as we go, as usual. This thing carries lots of scientific instruments that has never been out here, so this thing generates a lot of science. Now we're in solar orbit, and we're continuing to transmit science home. We will arrive at Eve maybe next episode. However, I thank you for watching and hope to see you next time. Goodbye!